Not to worry, I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute. He's online over there. Tony, do you want to say?
Hi there, my name's Councillor Tony Robbins, Mendip Hills Division, and I live in Wells.
You?
Yeah, I'm Hugh Davis. My division is part of West Somerset, which is from Watchet, Bulletin, Sandra, all the way to Stiverley, Higley Point, etc. But now we've become zoned. I've got even bigger area now, and that's right up to Mindhead and down to Coombe-Florey. Sorry, not Coombe-Florey. Bangor around that area as well. We've just been all changed units. Not big areas to cover there.
So the point I think I'm making here is it's quite a wide area we're looking at, and none of us are particularly familiar with this part. Somerset, maybe Councillor Robbins is. So we're here to look at the application. I just want to go through the agenda and then the procedures. So apologies for absence. No apologies for absence. Great. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from anybody in the room?
Do I need to say that I'm also a parish councillor?
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Okay, so that's noted. The procedure has been circulated. It's quite a standard procedure. Everybody will get the chance to put their case and to ask the people who put in their case questions about it, and then at the end of the day, most of you will go, and the councillors will come up with a decision. Okay, so that's the procedure. So I'm going to go straight into the main issue of the day, which was presented by the licensed officer Olivia Dennis over there, and this is and you'll outline the case anyway. Okay, over to you.
Yes. Might it be an idea for everybody around the table and in the room to introduce themselves so we all know who we are?
Let's do that. Where do the councillors are? If you'd like to carry on that way around.
My name is Leslie Dolan. I'm one of the council's in-house lawyers, and my function this afternoon is to provide legal advice to the licensing panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Claire Dickin. I work for the council in the Department of Democratic Services. We help the council put together meetings like this so that they can make decisions. Apologies for being in one of our smaller rooms. There is an election this week, and our preferred room is engaged.
Hi, I work with Claire in Democratic Services. My name is Debbie Widows. We'll be minuting this meeting today, and may I remind everyone that we are recording the meeting for minute-taking purposes as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Butley. I'm the licensing lead for Somerset Council.
Hello, Olivia Dennis, licensing officer.
Ian Wilson, looking hold. And Chris Goodjob, looking up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Colin Sounds. I live next door to Bucklegrove, and I live at Westfield Lodge, Rodneystoke.
I'm Val Bullen. I live in Mill Way, which is about a quarter of a mile from Bucklegrove.
I'm John Smith. I also live in Mill Way, which is the same distance.
I'm Mike Seeley. I'm the current chair of Rodneystoke Parish Council, so I'm here to represent the Parish Council.
My name is Ross White. I'm a unitary councillor for Mendip West, which includes this area. I'm also the deputy chair of the Parish Council of Westleigh Sub Mendip, because this is on the boundary. And I just have a couple of questions already, if I may. I assume this is an open meeting, including the deliberations. We don't have to leave, do we?
Deliberations between the members, having heard everything from everybody present, are held in confidential session, and then you will all be invited back when hopefully the chair will be able to deliver.
And are the applicants in the discussion as well in the confidential session?
Not in the confidential session consists of the two members present and the third member who's online, and myself as the legal advisor. Okay. Nobody else is present.
I think that's helpful for people to understand.
Yeah.
Because we see the applicants at the table, but we're not at the table, and therefore it feels a little unbalanced.
Yes, no, the deliberations are just the committee members who will be making a decision on the application, and myself to provide them with legal advice should be called.
Are we able to proceed on more questions? Anybody wants about procedure? No? Okay. So sorry for not introducing everybody. I'd like to go over to the licensing officer then to present the case.
Yes, thank you, Chair. An application was submitted for the grant of a premises licence by Wookey Hole Limited on the 31st of May 2023. The application can be found at Appendix 1. The plan can be found at Appendix 2, and the proposed conditions from the operating schedule can be found at Appendix 3. Buckle Grove Holiday Park is situated at the foot of the Mendip Hills on the outskirts of Rodney Stoke, and a map of the area can be found at Appendix 4 of this pack. There already is a licence in place for Buckle Grove, premises licence number 219. They have alcohol sales 11 in the morning to 11 at night, and that can be extended on 10 occasions a year to midnight. And they also have regulated entertainment from 11 AM until 12 midnight. If we turn over to page 12 of the pack, you will see a table of the proposed licensable activities. The reason this application has been referred to the licensing subcommittee was that there were a total of 8 representations received relating to at least one of the 4 licensing objectives. Where sections of the representation are not valid, these have been crossed through and should not be taken into consideration by the committee. There were several site visits carried out during the representation period with the applicant by the licensing authority, Somerset Council Environmental Protection Team, Avon and Somerset Constabulary Liquor Licensing Officer, and the chairperson of Rodney Stoke Parish Council, who's here today. At the end of the representation period, representations from other persons remained that were considered relevant under the Act, and it is now for the licensing subcommittee to determine the decision. The representations that were made can be found at Appendix 6 to 13 within the pack, and no representations were received by any of the responsible authorities. There is also a map included in the pack which show the location of the properties to the premises, and that's at Appendix 5. Finally, legal implications, just whilst considering this application. There is the Live Music Act 2013 and the Legislative Reform Entertainment Licensing Order 2014, which allows live and recorded music to be deregulated between 8 AM and 11 PM on premises authorised to sell alcohol, subject to a maximum audience of 500 persons. The licence authority does have the power to remove that exemption, but only if and when it conducts a formal review to review the premises licence. That concludes part of my report, Chair.
Okay, so we take questions for you then. From any parties in the room, I'll go this way around. Are there any questions that you wish to ask? This is any question over here, which is asked at this stage from licence. No.
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
to ask something. On your licensable activities, it says supply of alcohol from 8 till 2, and yet on the actual application it says from 6 till 2. I don't know if that had been changed.
Just double check that. That may be a typing error. Let me just check the initial application.
Maybe it's my printer.
It does say on the application 8 until 2.
Okay.
Okay. Did you want to ask?
Sorry.
That's right. Fine. If it says 8 till 2, that's fine. I'll go with that.
Okay.
And it wasn't as I saw it.
Yeah.
Just on page 29.
Okay, I don't have all the details.
Okay. Are there any questions therefore from members? Councillor Davies or Councillor Robbins for the licensing officer?
Well, actually, Chair, I'd like to ask the applicant.
You asking the licensing
That's what I
officer?
thought. That's why
That's the licensing officer.
I don't know how you can answer because it's their application.
But ask them later on in the meeting. This
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah, well, no, I haven't got anything to ask you then.
That's fine then. Councillor Robbins, did you have anything to ask?
I do, yes, thank you very much. I've been trying to find out over the last couple of days how many or how much of the volume of people within Buckle Grove that will be using the premises, be using the bar, restaurants, are they all staying there, or can a member of the public just drive in and use the facilities and not be staying there?
Well, that sounds like a question for the applicant as well. At this stage, we're asking for questions for the officer. And can we hold that question for the next?
Of course, yes. Thank you, Chair.
Well, we've gone past that. You can
Okay, sorry.
I'm happy to answer.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Looking at other applications for other licenses, people make much of the precedent. Well, we need to keep up with the other pubs, so we want this length too, or something like that. Is that a material consideration in licensing, that they need to, they can call upon evidence from surrounding areas and say, this is an example of why we need to have an extended license? I saw that in the recent one in Wells.
Okay, so for myself as the licensing authority, an application is submitted to us and we have to treat each application on its own merits. So I am looking at this application for what has been applied for, and obviously it goes out to consultation to the responsible authorities, and then they will come back and comment on their own specific areas, such as the police will come back for any crime and disorder issues, environmental protection will come back on any noise issues. So I don't know whether they would take into consideration anything outside of the premises application, but I'm judging this application on what's been submitted.
Okay, so you're saying it isn't in, I would use the planning term, material. Thank you.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? So there has to be no rationale given for why these extensions or variations from the current license are applied for?
No. So there is in law under the Act that you can apply to vary a license, minor variation, vary or apply for a grant. So anybody can submit an application to us.
Anything further? No? Okay. We will now move on.
Chair, could I ask
Yes.
a question? Olivia, in your presentation, you talked about Appendix 3 and the proposed conditions. Can you confirm that the actual proposed conditions we are talking about are those which were circulated by the Democratic Services Officer on the 13th of July, 2117?
Yes, so the conditions within the pack are what were offered by the applicant.
No. Subsequent to the production of the agenda, we received an email from the Democratic Services Officer on the 13th of July.
Supplementary. Oh,
Supplementary.
Yes. It was just with the change to item 12, which was amended just so it read, regulated activities outside will cease at 11 p.m. except for films, which will cease at 12 midnight.
Yeah. So members, when they're looking at proposed conditions, we'll be looking at the supplemental document that was circulated by the Democratic Services Officers.
Okay, I believe there's a query from here.
Just to confirm with that, it's actually page 46 of the original circulation of the conditions at item 12.
Yes, but there has been,
as you say, has now been amended.
There's been a subsequent amendment. So
Yes.
I just want to make sure that
Indeed.
we're all looking at the
Yes.
current document.
Yeah.
This is a question for the Democratic Services. I'm using my laptop as we're told to, and I'm not able to access any of the documents. Do we have a spare copy here?
Is there still one on the table, or must I
No.
go and get a further
No,
one?
both councillors are using the two that we had. If you need me to make you a copy,
I'll do that.
we could ask if we. Hugh, would you mind if we borrowed your papers for 5 minutes?
Just to make a copy again.
So that we can make another.
Would you like a suspension of meeting for that duration?
Well, I'm only going to be the one leaving.
Kelly,
So
do you want to say this?
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be useful. Yes, please. Thank you, Hugh. That we.
I'm sorry.
no worries.
I've been marking it.
Are you happy with the proceeding that we carry on while this is being done? You don't need us to pause? No? Okay, then we will continue then, and we'll move into the representations by the people present, and I'll take them in the order that I've got down here, and that order is Councillor Wyke, Councillor Seeley, Mr. Smith, Mr. Symes, and Mr. Bullock. That's the order we've taken, yeah? So is that, and you then move into yourself after that?
Yeah, in terms of order, I'm comfortable. We have an introduction which provides some background and explanation. I don't know whether that's helpful to do first. It may answer some of the questions rather than repeating.
Well, so there's an issue then. So, I mean, I have the agenda to see. I'm happy to change it if it's legal to change it.
Yeah, it is. It says that the discretion may change the order.
So it's up to yourselves. If you think that would be better to hear what they have to say in addition. Yeah? So let's do it in that way round, yeah? People are okay with that? So do you want to do this individually or want to start together? So that's in that case, we're going to the item here, which is invite the applicant to present their case and to call any witnesses. Okay, do you want to take on that? And then you can ask questions to them, yeah?
We're not calling any witnesses.
No witnesses.
And obviously it's not my intention to repeat the detail of the application itself, as that's been provided in the pre-circulated pack. However, I would like to provide a little bit of an introduction to help with context. The holiday park operates in a very competitive market, and we are seeking to attract people, spend their leisure time and holidays with us, and we are committed to providing our guests with special memories. To aid us in this end, we are looking for a flexible premises licence that allows us to adapt and meet the needs of our guests, enhance elements of the visitor experience, achieve our commercial objectives that will in turn allow us to reinvest in the park. We welcome thousands of guests to the site each year, with many of these visitors travelling from other parts of the country. These are guests that stay with us, but also spend their time in the local area and help contribute to the local economy. We therefore believe we have an important role to play in helping to support and contribute to the local tourism industry. We believe that we've been a responsible neighbour, and that remains our aim as we move forward. And we're also a local employer offering permanent and seasonal opportunities for people living in the area. Our present licence was originally granted in September 2005 and contains a number of limitations that we are seeking to address. Alcohol sales are restricted between the hours of 11 AM and 11 PM and can only be extended to midnight on 10 occasions a year. On these occasions, we have to notify the police and Mendip District Council, now Somerset Council, 10 days in advance of our intentions. And this limits our ability to react to situations by the level of service that we wish to. The lodge's operating hours don't start until 11 AM, and this restricts our ability to offer a breakfast service to our guests, and we're also limited in our ability to offer late night refreshments given the present operating times. We have a licence that allows for live music indoors until 11 PM, and again we can extend on 10 occasions a year till midnight. Legally this is restricted. We are unable to sell alcohol through our on-site shop or in any other location on site. We therefore want to extend the range of licensed activities that we can undertake and the times in which we can undertake them, detail which is contained in the pack. We believe the requested times will give us far greater flexibility and allow us to adapt to opportunities that may arise. We are also looking to future-proof the business, and we would therefore like to secure a premises licence that will meet the needs of the business as we move forward. I'm sure those involved today will appreciate the time and energy involved in preparing an application of this nature, and that is something we would ideally not wish to repeat at any time. With regards to the sale of alcohol, we've requested earlier start times and later finish times. Whilst acknowledging that we are family focused in much that we do not believe this precludes people from enjoying an alcoholic drink at different times of the day, be that earlier in the morning or later in the evening. People staying with us are enjoying their leisure time and their holidays. Whilst we've requested an end time of 2 AM for the sale of alcohol, it does not mean to say that we will use such a facility each and every night. Again, we are looking for the flexibility to be able to operate till later if we wish to do so. At the moment, we have to cease sales of alcohol at 11 PM. So even if we have a full bar during peak holiday periods and weekends, we are unable to continue serving beyond 11 PM unless we have made one of the notifications that we're entitled to. Having looked at a number of other local establishments, we note that there is a range of finish times for the sale of alcohol indoors, including finish times of 1 a.m, 3 a.m, and 4 a.m. Some local establishments also have finish times that include further 1 and 2 hour extensions around given dates. Please remember, when considering finish times, that the vast majority of our guests actually remain on the site at the end of an evening. While some establishments have a focus on extended hours over a weekend, it should be remembered that people are enjoying a break when staying with us. It's their holiday, and as such, focus should not be purely on extended hours at the weekend, as some guests take short breaks during the midweek period. I'll highlight such matters just to draw attention to the range of start and finish times that already exist for the indoor sale of alcohol in the local area. In preparing our application, we consulted with the Somerset Council Licensing Authority, Somerset Council's Environmental Protection Team, and the Avon and Somerset Constabulary with the Licensing Officer. As a result of these meetings, we included conditions within our application that we believe help to promote the full licensing objectives. At this point, I would like to address the condition detailing events of 1,500 people or more. The clause about events was requested for inclusion following a meeting with the Avon and Somerset Constabulary with the Licensing Officer. I believe it was requested as a means of ensuring that additional control measures are in place, and we are happy to include the clause on such basis. The figure of 1,500 people is subject to periodic review with the police. If we were planning to hold an event of such size, we would always adopt a responsible and thorough approach to our planning and consideration. Our own risk assessments would ensure we consider health, safety and welfare of anyone attending, and we would obviously need to consider the wider implications of staging an event of such size. The inclusion of a clause means the production of an event management plan is a prerequisite, as is the need for us to follow appropriate guidance, such as the Purple Guide. Completed event management plan would be subject to police inspection. If we were unable to stage an event of this size safely, we would not proceed. Whilst we have no immediate plans for events of this size, as I stated earlier, we are looking for flexibility as we move forward, and we believe this is a condition that's been designed and included to ensure that the appropriate control measures are in place.
Do you want to add something? No? No, thank you. Okay, so let's ask questions to the applicants. Any officers want to ask any questions first? You're all happy, and then we'll come to yourselves, and then we'll go to the members. So, in any particular order, do you want to ask a question?
Good afternoon, everyone. This campsite has been in existence for some time as a small family-run business. It has been a good neighbour. There haven't been late-night activities or inappropriate behaviour which has caused residents to be so duly unconcerned that they have reported it. Life has changed. Only a few weeks ago, unannounced, there was a firework display, and some cows were very frightened by it.
Correct, that wasn't at our site.
At the end of this
and the perception was that this was the start of something to come. We live in a wider community, and we are very aware of the issues in Wookey Hold. We must remember, this isn't an urban site. This is a countryside site. It's in the middle of the AONB and the Levels and Moors. It is part of a very quiet, rural, tranquil environment.
And the supplementary is on the top, so you can see the change. And I thought maybe everyone would just like it.
It's a very quiet, rural, tranquil environment. And that is the selling point for many of the local rural businesses, whether you're running a shepherd's hut or you're running local B&Bs, Airbnb and other activities. The nearest hub is Rodney. At the moment, but Rodney's license, because the license stays with the pub rather than the licensee, is not a late licensing. And while undoubtedly the You hope that it will be just local people on the campsite. We've seen and know and understand the way, the direction of travel of marketing of the Wookey Hole Empire, and therefore I think that there will be people coming outside the environment because of that. And I think that that is again a concern, because in an open, exposed site, very open, without many trees or other things to mitigate sound, noise travels. And there is not only the immediate environment, but wider one. And we have experience of that. We have a licensed dog kennels down the road from here. And the whole of the village gets woken up at 5:30 in the morning from the noise. And we have no reason to believe that other such noises would also generate that level of response. In fact, may even trigger the dogs at the kennels. So there is a concern about noise. Now, like many environments, we want to support businesses, local businesses, to flourish and to achieve things. And I don't think that a standalone license is necessarily a bad or thing which shouldn't be there. But the extension of this for flexibility, for future developments, we've heard the applicant this afternoon. Well, surely, if these things come to pass in the future, then come back. But at the moment, the licence seems to have moved beyond the planning permission on the site. And there is a question whether the statutory nuisance bar of licensing is a much higher one to actually prove than, say, the amenity value in planning. So we're going to have a planning application led by a license. And therefore, I feel that while I hear what you're saying, I don't understand why we go from 10 events a year to unlimited and no awareness and knowledge. The very fact that there aren't many people responding to this planning, this licensing application, is that it followed the rules. It was a notice in front of the premises on an unrestricted road, so there was no pavement, so people drove past, and there are lots of other signs, understandably, in front of them. So nobody recognised it. We know that the CPRE submitted, but they were late, and I know that something was put into the local paper again, absolutely according to the rules. But how many people now actually read the local papers? That just don't exist. So I'm not very surprised that many of the people around did not make a combination. I have got, and I'm quite happy to share my laptop with anybody. You can see, I can show you the number of people post the date have written and said, look, this is a problem. This is just a step too far in what is a very rural environment. And so what we're asking the committee today is, can we not have some moderate response rather than forever in the more, it's too difficult and expensive to do another licensing application, so we'll give them unlimited in all directions. Let's do it step by step. Let's prove that they are good neighbours and come back and ask for some more, rather than just one fell swoop. We go to what is, for most people, very late. And while I appreciate your guests are on holiday and they will want to do things outside normal working hours, the rest of the world around are not on holiday. We're living 24/7 all year round with something which has the potential, and it may not be your immediate intent, but it has the potential to be so significant that it would change the feel, the tone, the tenor of what we have locally at the moment.
So within this, there would be some questions. That's a general statement, I think, about the general position. But you've probably picked out some questions within that you could answer and respond, and maybe some other points to make.
It's not us.
Oh, excuse me, could you speak up a
Sorry,
little bit?
fireworks.
I'm aged and I don't look it, but I am.
If you could speak up a bit.
Sorry. The fireworks display was not us. It was not on our site, and a message was posted by the manager on the community forum. It was pretty straight at the time to say it's not taking place at our site.
I'm delighted to hear that.
So just to clarify that, and just to clarify the Rodney Stoke, the Rodney Stoke has a license till 1 AM on Fridays and Saturdays, and extensions throughout the year, different times already. So they don't finish at 11, they do it much later.
but it's for 2 days a weekend. Most of us work 9 to 5 during the week. Some of us work a lot longer, ask for that. I just think that what we've got is sort of 24/7, 365 days, which is what I was trying to say was the local work. And once a drinking establishment gets a reputation for late night drinking, then we know, and we've seen this happen elsewhere, including what we see in the Cheddar Ford.
We'll come to you in a minute. Did you want to respond to that point there? No? Would you, Mr. Symes, would you like to come in next?
I would like to support Ross with that, because my family, we ran Buckle Grove for 22 years, and we had all the planning for holiday caravans over the various periods, and Westbury always supported us because we were very, very quiet and everything was run in the proper manner. And I'm afraid, I think you have 8 or 6 residents. Have they been approached to know if they want all these late hours? It's their homes.
That's an internal matter for us.
Pardon?
That's an internal matter for us in terms of.
Well, you could say that, yes, but I mean, I don't know whether they've been approached or not.
Just to clarify, they're not residents, they're holiday home rentals, so they're not residents, they don't live there 12 months of the year.
They're not allowed to.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. But when we were there, the permission, I don't think it's been rescinded, they could stay there 12 months of the year. That was the license for 8 and 1 warden. And I don't think that's been rescinded, so they could stay if they wanted to.
We have no licenses for 12 months of the year on the park with the residents that are currently there. There's no one using it.
Okay.
Any further questions at this point?
No, I think that's it. But a bit later on when we come to sound, if I may.
Yes, just to come back, because if you look at the licence authority, and I can find you the actual licensing act, it does say you are required or recommended to consult with your neighbours and the people that are going to be directly affected. So I don't think that's an internal matter. I think it has to be seen to have been done at some level, but that's not for me to look at. That's for the licensing authority. But coming back, I think a lot of the issues have been generated because of this throwaway 1,500 people. Okay. You say in your own documents, and so they do say in the licensing authority, that you can take up to 700 at the moment if you use the field which isn't yours. Okay, your actual capacity is less than that, and you can only take 150, I understand, in the cafe, and up to, I don't know, 650. It varies in various documents. It varies. Okay, so I think what is the issue is if this goes through with this number. And I understand it means you don't have to put in for this or this EMP or EP. That's where are these people going to go? And once it's in, what we feel is it's already been granted that you can go up to 1,500 when you have no capacity for that whatsoever. So where are these people going to go? Even if you went to 1,000, you're looking at 300 more people. Now, I know that all that we put in about the strain on the facilities has been wiped out because it's irrelevant. I do think, and there is a line in the Act, that you must consider some impact, okay? And this is a small rural community, already overloaded at times by facilities when in the peak periods, when the facilities are overloaded, and we, as the residents, have to deal with it. The people on holiday don't. So I think that there isn't being enough attention paid to the impact on the local area and the residents and their facilities.
Would you like to respond to those points?
I think the level of detail is difficult because we're talking about hypothetical situations around services and facilities and size and the size. The size is over 7 acres. In terms of size, we can accommodate people up to 700 to stay on the site, but it might be that the people who join on that site but don't actually reside on it for that type of event. Yeah. The whole point of the event management, as I said in the introduction, was a request from police to include that clause, as it would not force, because we would be happy to do it, it would be in a natural way of work, use an event management plan, but consider all those issues, facilities, movements, etc. In terms of toilets, as an example, we could bring temporary facilities in, like lots of places do when there are events. In terms of traffic management, it could be that the majority of people come in on coaches, not cars. There is no car.
Well, you put them there.
So, I'm simply giving, that's why I don't want to get into too much detail about hypothetical situations.
To finish your...
So the event management plan, I believe, is there to ask all those questions before doing anything of that nature, making sure they can be answered properly, and if they can't, then no event of that nature will take place.
It only comes into place after 1500. Okay, what I'm saying is your facilities currently don't even allow you to have 1500 people. So how do you deal with that interim? Okay, that's what we're worried about. The 1500 people, I can understand that is a big event and you've got to do something about it. But you can go from currently 700 to 1500 with no planning or anything.
Give a response to that.
I understand the point and I understand the concern, and I think our point would be we would approach any numbers going over and above what the full site looks like with individual events in a similar way. So the configuration of the management plan, they would be the same questions asking ourselves once we go through those numbers.
Can that be made a condition?
It's something we can talk about, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to ask at this stage any further questions?
Not on, I think it was the numbers was the main one and the noise, which I've seen you have read your, what you suggest you do, but I think we're all worried that that is not easily done in an area where there is residents on either side. You say you're going to turn the speakers away and I don't know where, up to the cows and blow them away. So there is a big issue as to how you're going to control the noise.
Respond to that?
When we met with the representatives and council,
I'm sorry, could you speak up? I'm very sorry.
No. When we met with representatives of Somerset Council, one of the conditions within it is that we had a noise management plan in place. So we would adhere to the noise management plan that we would produce. And again, in terms of reassurance, we are conscious of our neighbours, definitely, but we're also conscious of the people staying on site. So, we have to manage any event and situation to make sure the people who are on site who maybe don't want to participate in those activities, that their time isn't spoiled, as well as making sure we don't cause disturbance to neighbours. So we have a balancing act to do with our own residents to make sure the last thing we want to do is send 700 people away unhappy with their day or their time staying with us. So, it's a balance for us with those noise issues, but we have agreed to noise management.
Do you wish to come back? I'll come back to you in a minute. Mr. Bullen first? No?
No, thank you.
Did you want to come back, Mr. Science?
Have we finished with sound?
No,
The volume of the quality of the music live and also on tape or CD, because it would help a great deal if you had a system put in. If the sound rose beyond a certain point, the electricity is automatically cut off. We have it in Draycote Hall, I believe, and in other places where people have complained and the volume is kept to a certain level. If that could be done, it would save a lot of our worries, I'm sure.
Are you able to respond to that, Councillor Wyken?
So, in terms of the meetings we had with the Environmental Protection team, there was no mention of that, there was no questions about, and I think having, I don't know how that would work in practice in terms of decibel levels and things like that.
Councillor Wyken.
Noise is a particular issue. We are very aware of it. We've seen it in other events. If you talk about Glastonbury, there is noise monitoring on the site and outside the site in various locations. They're very clear thresholds. Having a noise management plan doesn't give me much comfort. I would like to see conditions in it which are very clear, because if we have to go and prove statutory nuisance every time the noise gets to a certain level, it's going to be almost impossible. And we know from experience with the dogs that it is very, very high bar to get over. And therefore we would like to see a clear noise level written into the conditions so that we know where we are with this. Because at the moment, the statutory nuisance bar is so high that it's virtually impossible to do anything about. And therefore we would like something which is more reasonable for a rural, tranquil environment.
Respond to this?
I ask a question probably for
So just a couple of things. So in the conditions that are being suggested to be attached, there are 6 conditions related to noise. One of them being a noise management plan to be created, doors and windows to be closed, signage. There is also a mechanism to call a review of a premises licence. So I probably spoke to some of you about it when we've had telephone conversations in this process. If a licence is issued with the conditions that are attached, which there are 23 of them, and there are a nuisance, then a review can be called, and that can be called by other persons or responsible authority, and that's where the timings, the days, the activities and the conditions will be looked at under a review. So there is a mechanism in licensing. If things aren't going well, then a review can be triggered.
A review is fine, but it's a measure, and I believe it's statutory nuisance measure.
No.
No? So what is the measure? Because that's what we get thrown all the time in terms of noise from the docks.
Would you like to answer that one?
Yes.
Okay, no, the measure is basically, is it noisy? Is it causing a nuisance? That is the measure. And so what would happen is that if there are problems with the premises, this is any premises, and that it's causing a nuisance to local residents and there's noise issues, then that noise will be monitored. So Environmental Protection will put in some noise equipment out to monitor the noise, or physically go there and check the noise. If it is a problem, the licensee will be spoken to and informed that there is a problem there. If the licensee does not do anything in relation to that, then we will be looking at calling a review, and that's when further conditions are placed on the license, or the license is revoked.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. However, the nuisance is a very high level to prove, because that's where we've been hitting for years in terms of
the kennels is not under the Licensing Act. This is the Licensing Act, and there are mechanisms within the Licensing Act to protect people.
So how do we acquire that evidence? So how, because what may be a nuisance to me may not be a nuisance to someone else. How? Yes. So how do you? Do you report it? Or?
No, what you do is, in the first instance, you report it, and I encourage everyone who is affected by any licensed premises, if there is a nuisance, to report it, because we can't do anything unless it's reported. So that's the first thing. Once it's reported, in a lot of instances, say pubs, then we might get a complaint to say it was noisy on Saturday night. In the first instance, we will speak to the landlord and say, what happened on Saturday night? Oh, we had a band on. Do you usually have one on? No, we don't. So that's the difference of what's caused the noise. So we need to look at measures then of what to do in relation to noise. Close the windows, close the doors. Does that work then? And 9 times out of 10, just speaking to the licensee and informing them that next door neighbour has got a problem, alleviates that. And we do an awful lot of mediation. Like myself, Livia on the team, and Phil on the team. And so we speak to people and try to mediate everything that's said.
I fully appreciate you shutting doors and shutting windows helps matters. But at the moment, we've got a clubhouse which has 150 or 120, I don't know. And other than that, it appears that if you're going to have that number of events, then one or two things are going to happen. It's either going to be outside or under campus. Or you're going to be seeking planning permission to do something with the support. We have got a license to do it, and I think we just feel the whole thing is about face.
If there's
license is maybe planning.
I'll come back to the fact. If there's a problem, I need to know about it. If I know about it, I will deal with it.
I'll say dogs to you.
Deal with dogs.
Let's move back to the questions from yourselves here, directed at the applicants. Is there anybody who's not spoken yet would like to ask a question? Is there anybody who has spoken would like to ask a further question?
The only question with the gentleman, I don't know his name, is could we have an address or a name so that if we have this problem, we can address it and ask for help?
So just to point out on the application under conditions that will be added to the licence, it does say the licensee will provide a telephone number for the receipt of complaints from neighbouring residents in relation to licensable activities directly related to the premises. That's a condition. They also have another condition which they've offered, which says doors and windows will be kept closed for indoor regulated entertainment activities taking place after 11 o'clock. And as we already know with the adjustment, any outside activities, with the exception of films, will finish at 11 o'clock anyway, so it will all be indoors from 11 o'clock, with the exception of films.
And where will this name be available?
So it says the licensee will provide a telephone number for the recipient of complaints from neighbouring residents.
Make sure we make that available.
I don't understand where.
Oh, it would be somebody at site, so you could call somebody at site.
But how would I get that number?
We can provide that, subject to obviously when the licence is approved.
It's outside the contact number, you'd be able to get hold of anybody.
And are you gentlemen from Wookey Hall or representing only?
We're from Wookey Hall.
You're employed?
We're employed by Wookey Hall.
Yes, so we can ring up Wookey Hall and get this help. That's what we're after.
You would ring Buckle Grove because this is the application for Buckle Grove.
I know, but we can't ring Buckle Grove direct because we have to ring Wookey Hall and it's transferred back.
There's a direct number to Buckle Grove. There is a direct phone call.
Is it
to
still
Buckle Grove.
261?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, is that clear, that there's that channel of communication?
Thank you.
No, but that's all right.
I don't know whether it's now or later we'll pick up on lighting and the impact of lighting and particularly the cinema. Can we?
But that's the question,
Yeah.
these people know if it's.
As you're very aware, both Rodney and Westbury have a dark skies principle, and you're within the AOMB, and so dark skies are really important. And this isn't a sort of whimsical woke activity. This is something the parishes have really worked hard at. Westbury has been dark skies for 15 years. We've switched off and removed street lighting. We have evidence from glowworm hunt each year, from the number of owls recorded, etc. The lighting is really important, and when you remove it, it's there. Currently, we see continual lighting being added to the site over the years, and we accept it to a degree because it's a small family campsite. You know, we want to be good neighbours and haven't said very much. But if we're now going to go to people trying to get to the club room or late night drinking, etc., etc., can we have some conditions around the sort of lighting and how much lighting is on site? And if you're running a cinema event, then to clear whatever the audience is going to take you half an hour at least after the event. So, you know, is the lighting finishing the film at 11, or is the film finishing at 1 p.m. at 12? And then we'll see all this stuff around post-event as you're clearing the site. Just trying to get an understanding of what controls, if any, you intend to put in place to reduce the level of lighting.
Let's respond to the lighting issues.
I think we've put forward the conditions we believe are appropriate at this stage.
Anything specific you want to say to what Councillor White said beyond those conditions? No?
No.
No, because just one point, because in fact, with your licensing application, although the alcohol finishes at 2, you've got soft refreshment, which are about, I think, inside an hour, until 5 in the morning. So we're actually going on your application from 6 in the morning till 5 with some form of refreshment, either alcoholic or non-alcoholic, which is virtually 24 hours. So how would you light for that? Because basically that's a 24-hour site.
I mean, the site is operational in many respects 24 hours at the moment in terms of the facilities like toilets and showers and people moving around site. People are entitled, once they're checked in, to come and go from site as they please. So there is a degree of that movement already. In terms of operating later, we would obviously be mindful of that with any situation. I think I said at the beginning, we don't anticipate doing this 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And at times we do it, we would have to be considerate of these kind of factors. But we don't have a plan to suddenly install a whole new load of lighting on site. Sort of the lighting, this will be better in terms of, we've extended it, it's tended to be for safety reasons in terms of lighting access routes and things through the park. We haven't put any further in.
I'd like to just add, since we've owned the park, we've put literally hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of investment. And you all know a lot of the park was old and it needed investment. A lot of that was lighting, a lot of that has changed to LED. That does change the lighting pattern, but it's always kept to a low level.
Yeah.
It's kept there to allow guests to transition around the park, like my colleague has said. Toilet facilities, they're open 7. We have guests leaving early, arriving late, etc. It's always been the way of the park. So we just invested in and updated our current facilities on par with what was there previously.
Let's come back on that. So, anybody else who hasn't spoken would like to ask anything further to the applicant? Okay, so what we're going to do now is go to members if they have any questions for the applicants.
Don't we have, the rest of us have our chance to speak?
No, this is here. This is now.
Oh, right, then, yes, I have a submission to make, sorry.
One moment, members.
Right. I'm Mike Sealing, I'm the chair of the parish council. I think it's important to understand that the park has lived with the residents for a long time without any problems, and that should be considered. It also should be considered that the demographics of Rodney Stoke is that it's a very old and aging population, and they enjoy the quiet of the area, I suppose. Our big problem on this is really, it's gone from a license which has never really caused a problem and would seem to be all but adequate for 500 people, because that's the capacity of the park. The 750 is a bit of a red herring, because that's subject to being able to rent land next door. It's not part of the actual 7.5 acre site. So that's slipped in there. And obviously, I know the park would love to buy the surrounding land. However, at the moment, the park is 7.5 acres, and that's capacity is 500, I believe. The clubhouse has a capacity of 150, say. As it stands, the entire population of residents cannot fit into the clubhouse. Therefore, if the numbers are increased to what is proposed, to 1,500, where are they indoors going to go? That means there's 1,350 people who are going to be queuing outside to go in and get alcohol or whatever. Admittedly, if they're outside, I guess they can go in and out and buy their beer. But the capacity of the clubhouse and the capacity of the site overall would seem to be at odds. Furthermore, if there are large scale events, large number of people, and there are 500 people within the site, where are they going to park? How are they going to get in there? Even on buses, it's 100 buses or whatever to bring them in. And the site is crammed full of tents and caravans now. There's going to be, where are they going to go? Are they going to park down the main road? I mean, is it subject to, renting some more land off of a neighbour? I know it's all we hear on this application is flexibility. But flexibility to do what? Nobody will actually answer and say what that flexibility is to do. It is not transparent, and I'm sorry to have to say this, but the whole application seems to be hugely at odds with what the site can cope with. Once granted, it's a premises license. The current managers are really good, no quibbles there, and that's fine. But what happens if Wookey Hole next month, having got this license, sells it? And I appreciate that what the lead officer says, that there can be a review, but that's after the fact, and it's really going to be hard to prove. So Wookey Hole sell it, and somebody else comes in, and they've got carte blanche to hold whatever events they virtually like, subject to the conditions. I appreciate that, but once granted, it's going to be very hard to rescind. I would like to ask the lead officer, how many licenses have actually been rescinded within Mendip in the last 10 years?
One.
So the chances are that once this is granted, anybody's likelihood of getting, sorry, excuse me, a rescindance of this license is fairly remote. As I say, there is no clear justification for the numbers or explanation of specific activity. The requirement for flexibility is not transparent. The application as it stands is clearly disproportionate and far in excess of what the license required to support and it's a rural campsite. Let's not forget that. It is in a very rural location, a dark sky zone. It's in the ANOB. Why is it needed? And I hear flexibility, but there doesn't seem to be any real bones to that statement. Like I say, everybody in the parish would appear to be upset about it. I'm sure if it had been a minor modification to make it more financially viable, it probably would not have been a problem, but we've gone from down here to up there in one jump. And we are concerned that there is very little, I'm sure they followed the due process, but the due process does not really allow for transparency and the public and the neighbours to be told. As Rod says, you drive past, de-restricted, and the licence, I know we've put a submission in for the new licensing protocols. As it stands, and which is what we've got to live with at the moment, putting a notice up and not telling anybody, which you don't have to, it's supposed to be a partnership, and the parish council really do need to be told as a minimum, because then we can act on behalf of our parishioners. I guess that's about it.
Okay, so what I just want to do is take any questions, answers from that you may like to give at this stage.
Just to clarify one point, I think, in terms of capacity, Mark talks about 500. We do lay out in the application 600.
I'm sorry, would you speak up?
Sorry, and in terms of just clarifying one point, Mike mentioned a figure of 500. We're quite transparent about the numbers at 627. We didn't try and slip into all view. It clearly states here it's an additional hire. So I think just in terms of clarity, we put those figures into the application with no attempt to.
We also add that the parish council were sent a copy of the site notice, which is something that we do as a quirk when we were Mendip District Council. We don't have to within the Act, it just has to go in the newspaper and a site notice, which was what happened. But also we do make all members for the parish that the premises is in aware by sending them a copy of the site notice.
Do you want to ask any direct questions arising from those answers?
No.
What I want to do is to move into the next section, which is your representation. I just want to go to members first who haven't had the chance to come in. They may not, but let's find out. Councillor Davis, do you have any questions for the applicants?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, in your reply to the complaints you're getting regarding a possible outness of noise in Eastgate, not bringing in modern technology to reduce it when it gets to a certain level, I find that's a very foolish thing for you to say, because that's what will help get things done for everybody. So I'm disappointed with you there. Yes, certainly, please.
This point with because we met with environmental health, and it's not going to speak on their behalf, but they did not ask for any decibel limitations. So if we've been asked about those things at those meetings, we could obviously look at those things, but there was no request of that nature.
So I put it to you this way: we are the public. We are representing the public. These are the officers, and they're looking at the laws. If they want to cut it that way, that's up to them. But I think that's very, very wrong, because noise is a nightmare at any time of the day. And regarding the dogs, which was put forward earlier on, you can't compare with the noise of a dog barking to the sound of music, etc. So I think that's very unfair towards you people. But the other way, I think you should think very carefully about the noise and how you can regulate it.
Are you hearing this, Mr. Symes?
Just about. I'm sorry. I got tetanus, and it's that whistling that when we have a lot of people, I have a job to pick out the person that is speaking. But please,
Are there any questions raised in there that you wish to answer?
Chair, if I might make a comment, and it's not supporting the applicant or supporting the question from the member. The lead for noise and public nuisance is environmental protection. They have been served with this application. They have met and had the opportunity to speak to the applicant, to question their processes and their intentions. And on that basis, they have been satisfied that there is no need for them to lodge a representation in regard to the noise and statutory nuisance. Had there been a concern, then there would have been a representation and possibly a request for conditions. There are conditions, but there is no formal representation by the responsible authority who would lead on noise.
Thank you, Chair.
Just to come back in before you finish your question, anything you wish to add at this? You don't need to.
No, that kind of sums up probably what I was explaining about that.
That's fine. Continue here.
Right, thank you. The next thing is regarding drugs, etc. If they come on site. You say you've got a policy, which I read, but there was no word in there of banning the people for doing it. I thought you could just put in one sentence, these people will be removed or banned. You didn't.
I think there is a section in there about banning people. It's in the backside of the policy.
Shall I read it out? So you have the Prevention of Crime and Disorder, a drugs and crime prevention policy. So it's a policy which will surround how they would deal with drugs found on site and the people. Will be put in place and retained on the premises. Full cooperation will be given to any drugs initiatives undertaken by the police and licensing. A record will be kept of any searches and items seized, and records will be made available upon request. A copy of the policy shall be forwarded to the police and refreshed every 6 months. And then number 8, the licence holder will operate a zero tolerance policy in relation to drugs at the premises, and staff will receive training with regards to this policy. Drugs will be seized by staff and securely stored until to be collected by the police. A copy of the policy shall be forwarded to the police and shall be refreshed every 6 months. So there's 2 specific conditions to be attached should the licence be granted with regards to drugs.
And just to clarify that isn't the policy. There would be a detailed policy that is response to those 2 points. So we have that produced already in place. We would produce a detailed policy that would address the kind of issues you're talking about, how situations would be dealt with. Those conditions will lead to the policy being produced.
Thank you. So what I said was correct.
In terms of we would look at the individual elements within it, but obviously we need to adopt a very responsible approach to dealing with the drugs, and we would support the police in their initiative.
No further questions here?
Yes, sir. Yes. The next one is where you're kindly giving the complainants a telephone number to ring, etc. How people can't get through. What other ways have they got contacting these people? Now, I want to say what I would suggest, that you give them an email address as well. So that is then written proof, because it'll be on their computer, etc. And that's another plus for you. The telephone number is,
Yeah, just to add, so the telephone number is 24/7. So if it's not picked up by our Buckle Grove office, it would be directed to our hotel reception, which is again 24/7. We have call-out procedures in place for management team, etc. They've also got the email address, which is a facility that we can adopt as well. That email address is the same that's on our current website. So there's methods to contact, but telephone is the best method. If there is a problem at any given time, it will go to someone within our organisation to pick up basically.
Thank you.
Any further question?
No, I'll settle on that.
Okay. Councillor Robbins, do you have any questions for the applicants?
I do, Chair. Thank you very much. Just one, really. I asked earlier, but asked the wrong person. The clubhouse at Buckle Grove, is it used by non-residents? By residents, I mean non-holiday makers. So do you attract from Cheddar, older villages along there to Wells. Do you attract anybody just out for a drink that comes in, or is it purely aimed at people there on holiday? Thank you.
Go for it.
So the vast majority of people using the clubhouse at the moment are people who are actually on site. There's a small number of people in the overall picture that use it externally.
Yeah. Did you want to come back, Councillor Robbins?
Yes, if I may. With the extended hours, some of them will be meaning that you're open, or the facilities have the ability to be open a long time after most pubs in the area are shut, because most pubs in the area will shut probably at midnight at the weekends, maybe at 1 o'clock. My worry would be is with later hours, would you be attracting people more from, say, Cheddar or Wells or anywhere between? Because young people in these our towns quite often will travel quite a long way for a late drink. That is my concern. Thank you.
I think that's obviously something we acknowledge. We would monitor that. I think going back to the fact we would not have consistently open to those hours, going back to the issue of flexibility, it wouldn't be known that it's a local late night drinking spot because it necessarily wouldn't be open on a continuous basis.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Robbins?
No, that's fine, Chair. Thank you very much.
That's the members' questions to the applicants. I'm now going to move on to your section. Now, Councillor Seeley, in your questions to the applicants a moment ago, is probably the statement you wish to give in this section as well. So is there anything further you want to add to that?
The only thing I would like to add was to say, I hope that you have had the opportunity to read our submission, which I didn't intend to read out because it is 5 pages long.
No, we've all received.
So obviously you've seen it, and I just like confirmation really that you had read and understood, and whether you had it,
All members have had this for several weeks and I've read them. I've read them.
Okay, fine.
Okay. But apart from yourself, Councillor White, would you like to present something?
Yes, 3 things. One is I recognise that statutory information was sent to Draycott or Rodney Parish Council. This sits on the border, and I just think that it would have been helpful for Westbury Parish Council to get the information too, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. The second thing I'm concerned about is how do we actually communicate to people when you flexibly have an event? As you rightly said, the fireworks wasn't down to you, but it's very difficult to know what's going on. And if we're now going to see a lot more events, then people would like to have as a condition that there is formal notification on the website, and then somebody can monitor the website so that people know what's happening, because I think that is helps. We have quite an effective system to notify people when the quarry starts exploding, and people know when and if it's going to happen. And that again helps people to adjust with dogs and horses and animals and not going near when something is likely to happen. And I think that would help matters. Thirdly, I would say that I recognise that you invested in new lights, and I know LED lights are cheaper to run and that sort of thing, but they're actually quite harsh, and they really do need to be kept as low as possible. And perhaps if this isn't a 24/7 place, then you could perhaps be circumspect about what lights you need to keep at one level. I'm sure you've got some controls on them, and so low-level lights would be great to get people to and from the loos or whatever. But there is still quite a light array around site, and anything like that would be really appreciated. You started your talk this morning about being a good neighbour, and I have hope, expectation perhaps, that you can be a good neighbour to the wider community around, because you obviously have a business model and you want to keep your customers happy, and I fully appreciate that. But I and others hear and see and get the emails, the phone calls from residents who are not happy, and I would love it that those become something which is once in a blue moon sort of thing, rather than what could be potentially quite a lot. And I'm very conscious that I now have Wookey Hole in my new unitary division, and I receive a significant number of comments from that community. And I'm sure you don't want that to happen again in the communities campsite. So I will just make a plea. I can't do anything else given the system, but please try and help being a good neighbour, because you have a business to run. You want to obviously be successful, and I represent a community who have chosen to live in a quiet, tranquil part of the world, and really don't appreciate having some of the excesses which we see in security lights per head of population for most places in Somerset because of inappropriate behaviour. And I'm just hoping that you maintain your family low-level campsite and attract those sort of people rather than change the tenor and feel of the place. And I can't do anything about it, but I'd just make a plea that it's a good alternative business offering to what's going on in Wookey Hole.
Do you wish to ask any questions to Councillor Wyke on her statements?
No.
No? Any of the officers wish to ask Councillor Wyke anything? No. Any of the members wish to ask Councillor Wyke anything? No. Councillor Robbins?
No, Chair.
No. And any other members of yourself?
Just one specific issue, Madam Chair. The amendment to condition 12 on page 46 of the body, which is regulated activities outside to cease at 11 o'clock. Why do you want films to continue till midnight when the musical content of many films is equally as loud as the loudspeakers and live music? Why 12 o'clock?
The thought behind that was films possibly having to start later in the evening, because if it's the summer and it's like night, it might need to get to the degree of darkness before films were, worked in that setting. So that was the reason why it would be a later start and a later finish. But again, you would take into consideration the type of film that's being shown and avoid things that would cause disturbance like loud music within a film. So we can look at those kind of things at that point.
But is that likely to be regulated, or can it be a condition that is subsequently imposed that you would agree to? In other words, it ends at 11.
Yeah, we are looking at 12 o'clock as the end time on that.
And that's what I would oppose.
Any questions for yourself? Back to Mr. Smith, is it? No? Anything from the officers on that point? No? Anything from the members that might like to ask Mr. Smith a question what he just said? Mr. Davis, Mr. Robbins?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And any others amongst you who'd like to ask, make a statement at this point?
I would support the fact that because I live so close, there's only a lane between us and Buckle Grove, that the fact that if it could curtail a little bit earlier, that I would support.
Do you wish to respond to Mr. Symes?
Would it be okay to listen to everything and then maybe take a short break before that?
Yes, of course. Mrs. Bowles?
Yes, could I just come back just to reiterate what we were saying? And I wanted to pick up on your flexibility and allowing access to people, because as far as I can see, if you wish to have more people in, which I can understand as a business, you want to attract more people, and you can go up to Buckle Grove, you can go to eat, it's a big sign up saying come and da-da-da-da. I do live close enough to know. So you want to attract more people there who aren't on site, okay?
That's not a primary driver in terms of this application, isn't it?
Okay, well, that's not for us to say or no, because your application is for large numbers, 365 days of the year, 24 hours of the day. So that makes us wonder why you would need that if you're just saying, I can understand you want to have different variety of events like show films, but I am worried about some of the activities you have suggested for your refreshments till 5, which are stargazing and Olympics and I don't know what. But, so that suggests people are going to be outside all night. Now, if people are going to be outside all night, then there has to be associated light and more. So there seems some discrepancies between what you're saying, okay, which is perfectly valid, and what is actually in the application. And if some of those could be kind of looked at and addressed, then I think there wouldn't be such a problem, because we have no problem with the application per se, because there's one already. You have a license, okay, and you can hold events. 10 events a year, not all year, because your application, your license actually is for March till December, but you are able to do virtually what you want, give some notice and fine. But now this would be no notice, 365 days of the year. And even if you put it on your website, there's nothing we can do about it. So that's my worry, that there is this discrepancy. And I just would like to say that if some of those could be addressed, then I think there wouldn't be such an issue. But the noise and the light and the what's happening, which you haven't been very clear about, has made it become an issue.
You can respond to that now, or there's an item in a moment where you can sum up. Let's go there.
We have got something else, so maybe that's.
Okay, let me go to members now. Any members like to ask any final questions to any of the people in the room here? Councillor Davis.
Well, I'm not sure whether, Chair, by asking the question I can do so, but I feel that I would like to and be picked up by our solicitor for asking the question. I would like to ask you, are you asking for this business here, and Wookey Hole is not involved in it because you're using their name? So is it all the same company?
Yeah, Wookey Hole owns Buckle Grove Holiday.
I won't further comment. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts, do you have any questions for the people here?
No, I'm fine, thank you, Chair.
Let me move on to the final section here, which is yourselves. Whether one of you wants to sum up your position, you're welcome to that, and give a final statement.
I think the nub of the problem is the scale of change. It's also the lack of transparency in what might take place. It is the problem, if not problem, but situation that if the management changes or the site is sold, it goes with the premises. There is no review process like there are. You would expect that if there was a change in ownership management, then the subsequent management would have to go through this process again, but they don't. I mean, we live quite away from Glastonbury, and I can hear the festival from home. Noise does travel, light travels. We have done our best in the parish to make it an area for tourism, for people to come and enjoy. And this, although it doesn't openly say that they are going to ruin what's worked for the last 30 years, there is the potential for that. And if this had been a staged approach, I don't think any of us would be sat here today. But it's, it's gone from a nice, quiet family park to something that could be topsy and out of control. And it doesn't really, there's no transparency in what the flexibility really means. And I can't see that the sort of events that have been suggested are going to attract the numbers that they're going to make it a financially viable event. So I would just ask that the conditions, if you're invited to grant it, are very restrictive, so that at least the general public or the population around can be reassured that their interests are being taken into account.
Okay, thank you very much. The applicant, if you'd like to sum
We
up.
could just take 5 minutes, would that be okay? Just a couple of things I'd just like to talk through. before
Is
we
that
sum up.
okay? There's a slight 5-minute pause. Okay, can we reconvene the meeting then after the... Yeah. Do you want to come in with your statement?
Thank you.
Okay.
Obviously don't want to wish to repeat anything that's already been said in detail. I think just a few key points for us in terms
Could you
of...
speak up again?
Sorry.
She's taken other things about.
Just a few key points really. We believe that it is a legitimate submission. We're looking at ways to try and enhance the guest experience. We're looking to try and remain competitive in what is a very competitive market. We are looking to maintain and drive our commercial performance because we believe that will allow us to invest back into the park. There hasn't been any representations received from any of the responsible authorities. I know there's been a lot about talk about flexibility, but we are looking at that. We believe that will be controlled by any conditions that are placed on the licence. We will be responsible in our approach. We've always tried to be, and that will continue going forward. We are a local employer offering permanencies and opportunities to local people. We will continue to play an integral role in attracting visitors to the area and helping to support the local economy. And having listened to what's been said today as well, we would like to offer 2 amendments which we would be happy with. We would be happy to see cinema outdoors at 11 PM, not 12 PM. And we would also be happy to reduce the event management plan, kicking in at 1,000 and not 1,500 people.
Just confirm that, sorry, that the event management plan kicking in at 1,000.
Anything over 1,000.
Yeah. There's no questions at this stage. No, there's no more questions at this stage.
I would like to disagree a little bit with what the gentleman was saying.
No, you can't at this stage. I'm sorry about that. Because they've had some, you've summed up, they've summed up. The licensing officer will sum up.
I think there's a little bit of a white lie there.
Well, that's for us to determine at this stage.
No, there's no intent, I have to say, there was.
We can't have further discussion. These are closing statements, okay? Licensing officer needs to now sum up.
Okay, thank you. The decision-making process. The subcommittee must now consider this application on its own merits and from the information contained within the application and this report. Members are reminded that the duty of the licensing authority is to take steps necessary to promote the licensing objectives in the interest of the wider community. And the licensing objectives are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance and protection of children from harm. The options available to the committee are as follows: to grant the application with no modifications and only attach as required the conditions, only attach conditions as required by the 2003 Act. This shall include mandatory conditions as well as conditions consistent with the operating schedule. Grant the application modified to such an extent as the licensing authority considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, or refuse the application given reasons for its decision. Should the committee be mindful to attach conditions to the licence, they must only do so if they are appropriate, necessary and proportionate, precise, clear and unambiguous, practical, realistic and enforceable, non-duplicative of existing statutory requirements or offences, modern and fit for purpose, and also consideration must be given to the number of conditions attached. The licensing authority recognises that most licence holders seek to follow the law, and enforcement action will normally follow a graduated approach. And in the first instance, education and support will be given to applicants. Where licence holders continue to flout the law or act irresponsibly, firm action will be taken. And as we've discussed, there's a mechanism for a review. There is a right of appeal, so all relevant parties to the decision of the licensing authority have the right to appeal to the magistrates' court in connection with this matter, and this must be done within 21 days of being notified in writing of the relevant decision. That concludes my report.
Okay, back. Oh, okay.
Just coming on one thing, just for your deliberations, in relation to the agenda that you have, page 46, we have referred to number 12, which regulates activities outside. And that will revert back now to regulated activities outside will cease at 2300. So all regulated activities will cease at 2300. Also, at item 10 on the same page, any event that attracts more than 1500, that will change to 1000.
Yeah.
Just for your deliberation, so you've got the correct terminology.
Okay. That concludes this part of the meeting. What will happen now, to invite you all to leave, and yourselves, and the councillors and help the officers will come through this decision, which will be formulated in writing in due course, but will be announced today if you want to stay around for that. That's the process that we're going to go through. I don't know how long that will take. That's so. Stay around if you wish to. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chair, I'm going to stop recording, but I'm going to leave the meeting live so you can be in contact with Councillor Robbins. Okay, but I'm stopping the recording now.
Councillor Robbins.
And then I'm going to leave the room, but I'm going to leave my laptop behind so you can stay connected.